Hey, friend. So good to see you. Happy Wednesday. I hope that you have been doing well and putting in the work this week. I am really excited that you are attending this session for two reasons. Number one, today is officially Quitter's Day. And what I mean by that is I like to nerd out sometimes and I listen to like earnings calls for, Equinox or Crunch Fitness or any of these big fitness gyms. And they always say that today, at like January 17th, is when most people will quit their New Year's resolutions. So they see this flurry of, gym signups and people coming in and scanning their card and going through the workouts. And then on January 17th, they actually are like, this is sort of like it's when the quitting starts, when it starts to trail off. So I really wanted to make sure that this session today has doing the opposite of that. But this is my own personal gripe. It's my own personal gripe, but maybe you have it too. Actually, if you do have this gripe, let me know because Giacomo and Peter and Jen and Michael all might agree with me on this. We'll see. My personal gripe is with a lot of these people that are telling you about optimizing your protocols and really streamlining your vision in life and whatever, the Tim Ferrisses, the Hubermans of the world, who I love. I listen to the Tim Ferriss podcast. Like I listen to the Huberman podcast. So I'm not hating on them. However, where I think they differ from us is one really important thing. And I mean this in a loving way. I live in Austin. I've seen Tim, great guy, love him. They don't have extra circles in their life. And what I mean by that is they do not have spouses. They do not have kids. They do not have extenuating family circumstances or anything like that. So yeah, they can cold plunge at 5 a.m. They don't have to get the kids up and to school. And yeah, they can go to bed at 8:30 at night to get the proper optimized sleep because they don't have a spouse that they want to catch up with. And so what I was really thinking about and what I was excited to dive into today is not only how we can optimize and, get the best protocol for us in terms of efficiency and to-do lists and goals and visions for, Q1 or Q2 or Q3 of 2024. But most importantly, how do we do that with all the noise of kids and work and spouses and everything else that we might have going on freezes? Because if you're like James or David or you are in a cold snap right now. So maybe it's that you just can't even get outside and that's what's going on. So I was really pleased that Terry Rice is able to join us today because he not only walks this walk and lives this work with his clients and consultants, consultancy work that he does, but he is what I would call a whole human in that he has, 4 kids at home that he also has to get up and make sure that they survive in the world and that they are thriving humans, in addition to a spouse, in addition to being a podcast host, in addition to being a keynote speaker, in addition to being a writer. And so you have all these different roles, but how do you manage that with your regular life, with your outside life, if you will? So as Jen said, you mean I have to pay attention to my husband and my kids? I can't just ignore them and optimize myself for massive protocols. Exactly. That's what we're here to figure out and learn. And I'm excited, especially Terry has a great framework that he thinks of this through called Forge. I'm sure we'll get into that. I'm sure we'll get into any questions that you have about how to balance everything because Terry is such a resource and such a gift. So please help me welcome Terry to our coffee chat. So good to see you, my friend. What is going on?
I hate being the guy who forgets to unmute. It's like the most basic thing.
Right. Come on, man. Everything else but the mute button.
Yeah. How's anyone going to trust anything I say after this when they're like, the guy can't even learn how to unmute? So
you get a mulligan. You get a free pass.
Awesome. Appreciate it. I have a question for you before we get started. What do you consider cold in Texas? I'm just curious.
I mean, the actual temperature right now is 25, but the
Mm.
feels like it's 15. So it feels like I'm back in New York. Like I'm back in my New York jackets right now.
Okay, okay, yeah, it feels like 5 here, which is why I'm inside. So, okay, I hear you there.
You win, but it's still really cold.
I don't want to win that contest next time.
No, you're like, actually, I will happily be a loser. Thank you very
Uh,
much. So I'm really excited, as I said before, to dig in. Obviously, you talk about this framework all the time and these different protocols that people can do to kind of live their best life, create a great vision for themselves, for their career. But I do think what sets you apart, as I said, as we were filling everybody in, is the fact that you are an amazing husband and dad. Do you feel like that also plays a part into really making sure that you're working within the hours that you do have?
it does. I mean, I think your constraints can be an advantage because you have to
Mhm.
schedule when you're gonna get everything done. I mean, if I didn't have kids or a life outside of my work, everything can expand to fit the time you have available. But on my end, I don't actually start working like work until around 10:30. So I go to the gym
Mhm.
at 9. So by the time I get home and change, I'm starting at 10:30, and then I stop at 5 because I have to get my kids. So everything has to happen between 10:30 and 5 on a consistent basis, and it takes some getting used to, but that discipline is destiny. And once you do commit to it, you'll be amazed at the outcomes, how much you can get done in a short period of time.
Okay, I love this phrase. The discipline is destiny. Do you feel like you're very disciplined? Do you feel like you are kind of very rigid in the schedule that you set up for yourself?
I am, but before we harp on the discipline is destiny part, by the way, that's the title of a book written by an Austin native, one of your buddies, Ryan Holiday. So don't make it sound like I came up with that and I'm that brilliant. I'm just recanting what he said. But yeah, I mean, I am very disciplined just because like I have to. I mean, my fitness is very important to me, right? So I'm not recommending my program, but I work out 5 days a week, and I also do intermittent fasting. So I eat between 12 and 8 every day. I don't eat outside of that. But I've seen the outcomes that come from it, right? So it's not just that I'm disciplined because I'm strict on myself. It's like I've seen the results that come from this. And a great book to illustrate that book is called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. How small, seemingly insignificant things you're doing on a regular basis can have a big impact on the right line.
I love this idea of really creating repeatable structures for ourselves, even if those structures are very small. So, even if it's just, brushing your teeth at the same time every day, just really like those baby steps. What do you think? Because I'm sure a lot of people, myself included, are trying to get into some new habits as we start off the year and trying to stay disciplined in them. What are some sort of baby steps or I don't want to say tricks, but things that you use, tactics that kind of help you develop a new discipline or habit?
Well, it's discipline is painful, right? There's another quote that I'm gonna not attribute to myself. What is it? You have a choice of suffering one of two pains. You can suffer the discipline of regret or the pain of discipline. The only difference is the pain of discipline weighs ounces, whereas the pain of regret weighs tons. So realize you're going to be
Mhm.
uncomfortable. Like that's the first thing is like stop trying to avoid pain. You are going to be uncomfortable. And once you realize that, you can choose the pain you want to experience. Is it the pain of discipline or the pain of regret? So I would just start there. And I would also say you have to have a vision for your life. What do you want your life to look like? Because then you know what's in it for you when you're going through this discipline, right? When it's, 10 a.m. In the morning and I'm hungry and I'm like, oh, I can't eat for 2 hours. Why not? Because this is how you want to look, right? So if you don't know what's in it for you, then you're like, why am I being disciplined? Like, this seems kind of hard. It all starts from there. And then again, when you have that vision, you reverse engineer what needs to happen in order for you to live in that vision. And that's the discipline routine you're going to set up for yourself.
I'll tell you one thing that been struggling with, honestly, is I've been trying to answer that question for myself. Sort of, okay, Kim, you're waking up. It's February 10th. Like, what does your ideal day look like, or what is that sort of dream vision for yourself? And I think it's just because I'll speak for myself. I think it's because I am guilty sometimes of being like squirrel.
Yeah.
There's lots of shiny balls to chase sometimes. And so then it's hard for me to kind of create, I don't know, like a singular vision, or maybe a north star. There can be other stars in the sky, but maybe there's like the brightest star. So if you were talking to somebody like me that's sort of having trouble, creating that big vision, big life vision, what are some steps that they could use, aka I could use?
Yeah. I would say a few things. One is just take a break because you can't work
Mm,
on yourself and in your business at the same time. It's very difficult. So give yourself time to just reflect. And then just think about not necessarily what are your goals for your future. Like I want to have this much money or this house. Like what experiences do you want to have? Do you want to feel
mm,
expansive? Do you want to feel helpful? Do you want to feel loved? Do you want to feel a sense of community, whatever it is? Because if it's just the stuff that you're chasing after, even when you achieve that, you'll experience what's called hedonistic adaptation, meaning you keep on getting more stuff. After a while, you're like, I'm used to this. I want more. So you're on this hamster wheel,
yeah.
right? So be aware of hedonistic adaptation until you get an idea of the experiences, the emotion, the relationships you want to have around your vision. None of that stuff's going to matter. So just think about it though. Like you are the painter in the portrait. What would a perfect life look like? And then from there, you can construct it. So I would start there, but just like you can't like sit at your desk and do it. You have to walk around your neighborhood, look for something new you've never seen before, daydream, talk to people as well. Because once you have that vision, like I said before, you can reverse engineer everything that has to happen to make it happen to achieve that. That said, you do have to look out for those shiny objects too, right? And the most important ones are what I would call distractions that are disguised as opportunities, right? So if you know your vision is to be a
Mm,
keynote speaker, speaking all these stages all around the world, and someone's like, hey, we'd like you to come consult our online group. It's going to take you like 20 hours a week, but we're going to pay you this much money. That is a distraction disguised as opportunity. So you got to look out for that
yeah.
too. And again, that's where the discipline comes
Oh, that hit, because that's definitely happened to me before, and I'm trying to be a better spot of those things, and really saying, does this feel like it's aligned with what I want to be doing this year? So I love that. It's like what opportunities are disguised but are actually keeping you from what you ultimately want to do. If you have a vision for your career of something big that you want to do. So for some people it might be being a keynote speaker. For some people who might be joining that are sitting in full-time jobs that see out there consulting, or you out there on keynote stages, and think to themselves, I want to be more like Terry. I don't want to be at this corporate job anymore. I want to move into a consulting role. What are some, I guess, lessons learned that you've faced, or maybe people that you've worked with, clients or consulting work that you've done, that when you want to make that big jump, let's say in your career, you can, I guess, try as much as possible to ease the discomfort as much as you can?
Yeah, the first thing I'll say is you can probably find a better role model than me, like aim higher. Like if you could choose anyone in the world, there's probably other options out there. The other thing is this though, some people want to leave corporate because they're like, oh, I'm sick of having a boss. I want to be my own boss. That's not a good reason to leave. You might just have a problem with authority that you have to address separately, right? So just because you don't want a boss, that doesn't mean like, I'm out of here. Like maybe like pump your brakes a little bit. But what you should do is this. You should come up with an idea for your business. Maybe it's a service, could be a product, whatever it is, and then start slow, right? Start moonlighting in this business before you run out with run out of your current company. And one thing I want to caution people with about is this: do not actually leave your company until two things happen. One is you're able to get new clients or customers outside of your network. So you're able to
Mm,
convert cold leads into customers and clients because it's relatively easy. I'm using air quotes when I say that, to get people
yeah.
to buy into your service when someone's recommending you, right? Your cousin, your best friend, whatever. But when you're just out there in the wild trying to get a stranger to buy your stuff, it's totally different. So do not leave your company until you have an established business development and sales process in place. Another thing is you should feel almost in pain about how much money you could be making if you didn't have that pesky 9 to 5 job, right? So you should have so much demand on your time and so much predictable revenue that you could get if you just left that job. So until you have those two things, as well as saving up some money, of course, I would recommend staying in your current job. That's not the case for everybody. Some people just get laid off. Been there before, in which case you have to accelerate everything. But if you do have the luxury of waiting, that's what I would do.
Yeah, I would second that fact of really making sure you can get people outside of your sphere, because I think that that's a really important. I've even found out with myself. I'll try something new and I'll be like, "Wow, that was so easy." But then when I go to do it
Mm,
the second and the third time, it's like, "Oh, this is a little bit harder," because now sort of like the initial people, you have to keep the rings going, and the farther out those rings spread, the harder it is to
yeah,
really, because people, they don't necessarily know who you are, or you don't have that sort of warm lead where, to your point, a friend recommended you, a sibling recommended you, and it comes with that sort of stamp of approval. You're really starting from scratch. I think that's such a powerful point, so thank you for adding that in.
yeah.
That's big. When you're thinking about your 2024. I'm just curious because I feel like I have a love-hate relationship with resolutions.
Hmm.
In some ways I think it's good. In other ways, I'm like, it's terrible because it's like setting you up for failure. I'm just curious, do you actually use any sort of resolutions or goals, or how do you think about that?
I mean, resolutions, I'm always like, you could have done that earlier. Like, what was wrong with September 1st?
Yeah.
So I don't
Yeah.
like, because that's planning is a form of procrastination. So if you really waited for
Mm.
January 1st to start some new phase in your life, I don't know, that seems kind of sketch. And that's why quitting day, is such a big thing.
Yeah.
But on my end, I mean, I do the regular stuff. I do the OKRs. But one thing I want to call out, our friend Jen Whitmer in the comments mentioned this book called 10X is Easier Than 2X by Ben Hardy. And on my end, I read that book too. I actually have it here as a prop. And one thing I took away from this book, as well as another one of his books, Be Your Future Self Now, is to
Mm.
focus on doing less but better. I'll say it again, less but better. That is my approach towards 2024 right now. It's less but better, to the point where I'm actually not doing any consulting right now. I'm not doing any speaking for
Mm.
the first half of the year as well, because I'm building some other revenue streams. And with 4 kids and working out 5 days a week, you can't do more but better. So you got to do less but better. And I'm already seeing a huge impact from that in regards to not just getting some time back, but revenue generation as well. It's been incredible.
I love that, less but better. I feel like we could all use a bit of that for sure. It sounds like you've become really disciplined with going to the gym every day, for example, as just kind of not necessarily career wise, but it sounds like a personal goal or discipline. I love this question from Jeff. Do you have sort of an accountability partner, or is that a strategy that you use, or is it a strategy that you recommend for other people?
I'll give the easy answer. Yes, I recommend an accountability partner. According to the American Society of Training and Development, if you have an accountability partner and a goal, your chance of success goes up by 95%. So, yes, get an accountability partner. On my end, what holds me accountable fitness wise is I go to CrossFit classes. That way, the same people are
Ah.
expecting me to see me every class. And if they don't, they text me
Mhm.
messages. And there's a sense of community too. So, I was talking to my wife about that. I credit the community-based classes in the gym with my, if you want to call it this, a success in regards to staying in shape. So yes. In regards to a professional accountability partner, I recently hired a performance coach, and that is my accountability partner. He's good at business. He's good at mindset stuff. He's also a former personal trainer. So that's my dude for everything, and I meet with him every Monday.
Okay, interesting. If we could dig into that, I've never heard of a performance coach before, because it sounds like it's performance in many senses of the word. Performance in terms of, okay, now you can lift X instead of Y, but
Yeah.
also performance in terms of your business and career. Tell me more, like, how did you figure out who this person was? What sparked you to want to hire somebody to help you do this?
Yeah, let's dig into that, right? Because how do you even trust someone to be your coach, right? You can do all the research, so on and so forth, but still it's like, is this gonna be a good fit? I found him through my network. I've actually known his wife for about
Mm.
8 years. And I was talking to her about some challenges I had because I lost a family member a couple months ago. And I was like, oh, I'm
Mm.
going through it. She's like, you should talk to my husband. And I'm like, why? And then she told me what he does. And I saw that he has a deep rooted desire to help people overcome setbacks and push through challenges, because he unfortunately lost one of his siblings due to a preventable
Mm.
disease that she could have taken care of perhaps through exercise and diet. and has seen other family members fail in their businesses, which led to depression as well. So he's like, how could I avoid these things from happening in the future? And that's when he started his business. So this kind of goes back to our first statement. Like your network is going to most likely be the first source of leads you're getting for your business. So make sure you nurture your network. Um, and going back to what I was saying, you have to invest in yourself, right? We're all talking about how to become a great consultant. Well, you want people to pay you to help them. You should probably pay someone else to help you help them, right? So I found a lot of consultants are I'm not talking to anyone who's listening, obviously, they're hypocrites. They want you to pay for your advice, pay them for their advice, but they don't want to pay someone else to get their advice as well. So I would say if you have the money, do invest in some kind of community, accountability partner, performance coach, whatever it is. If not, just find people in your network that can hold you accountable and support you as well.
I love this. What do you think is the biggest takeaway that you've, I guess, learned in the, I don't know if it's months or years that you've been working with this performance coach?
It's only been a few months, but just basic stuff like, oh, you checked your gut health. And I'm like, I've heard about it, but I haven't actually thought about it. And like all like the connection between your brain and your belly and all this stuff. And it's like, those are things that you might like hear in passing, but if you're so busy trying to make the next buck or like run to the next meeting, you don't digest it. No pun intended, but there was a pun intended. So on my end, I'm like, what are the simple things I can do to optimize my life? For example, drinking more water, right? So I have an app on my
Right.
phone that reminds me to drink water. And I think too often we're looking for the latest hack, the latest gadget, the latest thing that AI came up with. And like, have you tried sleep? Have you tried water? How about legumes? You know what I mean? Like there's all this basic stuff you
Right.
can
Eat a
do
bean.
before you get to that stuff. And if you do want to get sexy with it, cool, do all that stuff, but like get a good foundation first and then amplify with all the other stuff.
Okay, to drink more water and stuff, I use an app on my phone. Where's my phone? I use an app called Streaks. And oh, I'm showing you because I don't know if you can see, but it sends me push notifications. So
Mhm.
this one says green juice because I haven't had my green juice yet today. But anyways, I use Streaks. How are you? Do you track, these kind of drink more waters habits?
I have an app called Water Drink Reminder.
What?
um, which
It's a very original title, Terry.
it's great for
Very
SEO.
original.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
have that. And then I have another one called Loop Habits because one of my habits is journaling. And I can talk about what I put in the journal because I think it might help people too. But so there's a couple apps on there that I use for that.
Yeah. Talk to us about journaling.
Okay, cool. Thanks for inviting me. So my journal, I started the process because everyone says you should journal. And
Yeah.
initially I was doing a handwritten
Which is the
journal because I
most
read
annoying advice, by the way. I hate when
everyone should
someone's just
journal.
like journal. And then you're like, where do I start? What are we doing? Who's journaling? When are they doing this? And then I just sort of like analysis paralysis and then I don't do it.
Well, I'm going to answer all three of those questions right now. So,
Okay, great.
where I initially messed up was trying to handwrite my journal, but then I realized I don't
Yes.
like writing. So, I was writing far less than I could have. Like, how was today? Went great. See you tomorrow, right? I was like, I don't like writing. So, then I changed to a digital format, just a Google Doc, nothing fancy. And there's a few
Yeah.
prompts. The first is, what are my wins for
Mm,
the day? Could be something big, could be something small, but I do that. Then I do my
right.
gratitude list. That could be something basic as well, but I try to put something new every day. The next part's really important. I write down an observation about each one of my family members. So all my kids as well as my
Mm,
wife. So it might be my son Tyson was very kind to my daughter Bree and offered her a piece of pizza or something like that. And the reason
yeah.
why I'm doing this is because, first of all, it's going to be a documented history of my family. Second of all, it forces me to pay attention to what my family's doing because I know, oh, I got to write something down at the end of the day. And if I'm not paying attention, I'm running a blank, right? So I do that.
Yeah.
Then the next thing is I do what's called future casting. And I write down something that I want to happen in the future as if it has
Mm,
already happened. So I'll say, today, me and Kim are taking off to Germany to speak on this stage about mindset and entrepreneurship. So excited. I'm going to bring the kids with me. Hope they sleep on the plane. We'll see. And the reason why I'm doing that, because again, every day I'm tying back to my vision that I have for my future.
yeah.
After that, I write, what are you going to do to live in the future that you described just now tomorrow? And then I'll do
Mm,
something basic like I will reach out to three event planners about my new speaking topic, whatever it is. And the last part's
yeah.
just like free flowing thinking, like, hey, what's on my mind? That's where I just dump out anything that's in my mind. So just that process alone takes about 10, 15 minutes. but I've been a lot more happy. I've been a lot more mindful. I've been a lot more intentional about my actions. And it helps me celebrate those little wins along the way as well.
Do you set a timer for those 10 to 15 minutes, or like some nights it takes you 20 and some nights it takes you 10?
I don't set a timer, but I set a time, and it's 7:30 p.m.
Okay. 7:30 p.m. And you do it at the same time every day.
Correct.
I like that. Okay. I feel like having a structure, because when people just say journal, I don't know, it almost feels like Dear Diary. And I'm like, today I ate a taco. And I'm like,
Uh,
what am I doing? Like, what's going on here? So I
if
like
it's
the
a good
idea of
taco, it
really
might be worth
having it.
writing about.
Right. It was the most amazing El Pastor taco I've ever had. Because that I feel like is helpful when we, and I also just I love this idea of really creating. Someone said this to me the other day and it really resonated. She said, Kim, stop thinking of things that you have to do as a schedule and start thinking of it as a ritual,
Mhm.
because rituals sometimes can be like calmer, or it can be like a sense of gratitude, like, not necessarily that it has to be like a spiritual or religious sense, like, oh, it's a ritual that I go to church or something like that, but just more of that language shift. Because sometimes the word schedule for me, maybe it's because I have like a type A personality, it's like it's like it's hard, it's fast, it's rigid, it's like no bendability. And there's something about the word ritual that felt a little more gentle, a little more, I don't know, peaceful. So I like this idea of journaling as like a ritual, not necessarily a scheduled thing. I like that. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I love this. I love
Okay.
this question too from Matthew, who, speaking of scheduling, was saying if you've never actually used a schedule or you've never actually created these like time bound processes. So like every night at 7:30, I do XYZ. What's a good place to start with that?
What I would say is start small, because
Yeah.
if you try to like all of a sudden like make a schedule or ritual like throughout your whole day, it might feel so jarring. So maybe just say to yourself, "Hey, that guy Terry said to journal every day at 7:30. Let me just try it with that." And then the next thing is, okay, well, I'm on LinkedIn all the time, but I'm never actually engaging. I'm going to block off half an hour just to engage on LinkedIn. So I would start really small. But one thing that
Mhm.
I've done just to kind of go deeper is I wrote down everything I need to do to be successful in my personal and professional life on a daily basis. So I have to go to the gym X hours, I have to spend X hours writing, I have to spend a couple hours on admin stuff, whatever it is, and then put that on my schedule, like literally on my calendar. So I have to spend 12 hours per week creating content between my podcast, my column and
Wow.
entrepreneur, between LinkedIn. That's blocked off on my calendar to protect it. I also have to spend
Mhm.
time, I shouldn't say have to, I spend time one on one with each of my kids every week too. So I have that blocked
Yeah.
off on my calendar, one on one time with Tyson, one on time with Lena, so on and so forth. So now we're talking about just system design, right? Your system.
Mm.
And if you just really just pour out, like, okay, how many hours do I need to successfully execute all these things? And then put them on your calendar, you might see I'm overcommitting. I actually don't have enough time to do all this stuff. I got to cut something out. What is it? I don't know. I'm going to read this book, 10x is easier than 2x, and cut something out. But that's the way you do it. And then by design, you're not overwhelmed. But I would also say schedule in white space. What is white space? Whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Like walk around the block, do whatever, because the majority of my best ideas, and Kim, I bet you can relate to this, they come when I'm not trying to think of something, right? If you sit down at your desk and you're like, strategy, 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 that doesn't work, right? But when you're
No,
like walking back from
never.
the gym, you're like, oh, I got it. I got it. You have to give yourself time for that. There's a study by Forbes that said 93% of CEOs agree that white space is when they have their most creative and critical thoughts that help their business, but only 3% of them block off time for it. So don't do that.
Don't do that. I would also say an easy way to do this. I was actually just, I won't say yelling at my husband, but gently encouraging my husband, because he has his stinking AirPods in all the time, like listening to whatever podcast, and he has them in when he's working out in our little home gym. He has them in when he's folding the laundry. He has them in, he has them in all the time. And I was actually just telling him, like, do a task without those freaking AirPods in your ears. Because, like, to your point, I think creating that white space, like creating that silence and letting ideas hit, especially if you find yourself like, I'll speak for myself, for example, is just a habit, oh, I'm going to the gym, or oh, I'm going for a walk around the neighborhood, grab my headphones. Like it's such second nature of, oh, I'm going for a walk, grab my headphones. And so what I really try to do is say, okay, not every walk, because let's not get crazy, but every fourth walk, I'll be like, okay, let's leave the headphones at home. Let's have a break from the headphones. So I would say to people, whenever you find yourself reaching, because we do it, I would say we do it like habit. Like we don't even realize that, oh, we're going to go do chores around the house and we're popping in those AirPods. That's a really great place to start with just creating a little bit of white space for yourself.
I
I would
appreciate that. The only challenge is, go ahead.
no go.
In New York, you need these so people don't try to sell you stuff, though. You know what I mean? So it's like, oh, sorry, can't even hear you. Like, what? Comedy show, huh?
What are you talking about? I know
But I
it does
agree.
kind of help people not talk to you.
Yeah, I'm messing with you, but I also listen to binaural beats as well. So any kind of like alpha waves as well that might help you too.
Yeah.
It's better than listening
Yeah.
to Drake. No offense to Drake, but
Yeah. No offense. I would also add one more point to that, Matthew, which is I think you should start with small habits that you actually enjoy.
mhm,
I think a
that's a
lot of
good call.
times people will say, again, how we were talking about earlier, like, I'm going to go to the gym, every day for an hour, which if you're not used to doing that, it feels like a chore. But if you try to make a schedule of something you actually enjoy, to Terry's point, I spend 5 minutes each day with each of my kids, or I try to recognize something in each member of my family. That's something that you might actually like doing and enjoy spending time on. So I would also say, start with things that you actually enjoy as opposed to either something new or something that even has the potential to feel like a chore in any way.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. I like that approach because again, this is a lifestyle you're designing, and you don't have to make that quick of a
yes,
shift at once. Just come in the shallow end of the pool before you get too deep.
exactly. Exactly. Okay, another question from Andrew. How would you suggest you block off time for personal life without making clients think that you are unavailable after hours? I'm in mortgage sales, so people generally contact me after they are done with work. Ooh, this is a good one because I'm sure a lot of people have jobs where their availability to talk to you is actually when they're done with their workday.
Yeah. Yeah, I've not had that experience before, but what I would consider is trying to get the best analogy. For example, if you know that's a busy time of day for you, block that off for work and then try to see
Yeah.
how you can make up for it in other areas. Now, I don't know if you have a family or kids that are like, hey, dad, get off the phone, like, or at dinner. But if that is possible to make that part of your schedule, like, hey, between 7 and 9 p.m. or whatever makes sense, I am available for text based conversations, not like, Zoom or anything. That's just part of your life. If you can't shift those people to communicate with you during the day, you can consider shifting your schedule. But if you really don't want to do that, then it's like, all right, let's think of some other some other approaches towards my business. But that's what I would say. I haven't experienced it, but that's the approach I would take.
I would also say we got this piece of advice from Antonio when he came on to chat with us, and I thought it was so smart that you can do things out of order. So he was talking about how he goes on day dates with his wife. So instead of
Yeah.
doing the traditional like Friday night date night or Saturday night date night, he will do a date night on Saturday morning, or he will do a date night on a Tuesday morning if his wife is working from home in the morning. And so I think that that's also something that you could explore if there are, other times available that you could kind of shift things around in your schedule. Maybe that would help.
Yeah.
I'm
Good one.
curious because you already mentioned the book 10x is better than 2x, which I wrote down because I need to clearly read that book soon. Are there any other books that you're reading right now or that you read over the holidays that you're like, this was a great freaking book?
Yeah, I read Essentialism by Greg McKeown,
Oh,
and
okay.
now that I think about it, the less but better quote came from Essentialism. So scratch that from the record. But it just made me realize a lot of stuff that I'm doing, both personally and professionally, isn't quite helpful. and it's actually causing noise. So
Mm,
and like I realize that sometimes like when I'll be making breakfast for my kids, they're talking, but I'm thinking about something that happened at work. I'm like, wait, there's like three things going on in this same like environment right now. I got to
yeah.
remove some clutter from my brain. So that's what I'm doing. And also in my physical space, like I'm looking forward to donating so much stuff that I have just to get rid of it because that stuff builds up too. And I think if you can part with something physically, that almost trains you to part with things mentally as well. And in the book, the author says, go through your closet, look at each piece of clothing, and say to yourself, what would I pay to buy this again in this current condition? How much would I pay for this?
Mm.
And oftentimes you might be like, that piece of, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not, I wouldn't pay anything. You might as well just get rid of it, right? So that part's been challenging, by the way, because I've cut out some personal relationships too. Like some of my buddies, they want to go back and forth and talk about like, a football game. I'm like, dude, that's cool, but it's Sunday with my family. You know what I mean? And you should be with yours too,
Yeah.
maybe. But on my end, like that book Essentialism, like it's been such a good time of just transformation for me, just realizing like, hey, less but better, and I'm just a lot happier because I don't have as much noise going on in my head.
Have you taken this sort of essentialism or less but better motto also to the digital space? Like, have you said, okay, I'm going to unsubscribe from all these newsletters and I'm only going to subscribe to these five, newsletters that I really like, or I'm going to unsubscribe from all my podcasts and then only sign up for these three podcasts that I think are really, essential. So, one, do you do that? And I'm curious, number two, if so, what are some, you don't have to list all of them, but what are some of the newsletters or maybe some of the podcasts that kind of quote unquote made the cut of what is that sort of less but more for you?
Yeah, I haven't done the whole unsubscribe thing, but I will tell you how I'm getting less but better in regards to my social media interactions. So
Yeah.
on LinkedIn, we all know it's important to comment, right? But it's like there's just so much noise, right? There's someone's like, I had a sandwich, or someone else is like, just stuff you don't
Hated
want to see.
sandwich.
So what
Yeah.
I did is I discovered how to create a curated feed in LinkedIn where you only see posts from creators that you select. So you go to LinkedIn, you say, show me posts from these 20, 30, 40 people. And then your whole LinkedIn feed is just those individuals. So on my end, I have a few different
Wait,
lists.
what?
I know, right? That's
How do you
insane.
do
Yeah.
that? I'm writing this down.
I'll say it verbally, and then like my most recent newsletter, that's what I talked about. So if anyone wants to subscribe to it, go to my Instagram or my website. But essentially what you do is you go to LinkedIn, and then in the search bar you just hit enter. Don't put any information in there. Then click the
Okay.
button that says posts, and then I'm going to do
Post.
this real time because I'll botch this, and this is good homework. So you search, then you hit enter, then you select the button that says posts.
Okay.
And obviously my computer's running slow because I'm talking to you. But after you hit posts, and since I already wrote this somewhere else, I'm going to quickly find where I wrote that. And Kim, this is a good time to pivot.
Wow.
Well, hold
You
on.
can
This
have
is
different lists. So you could have like, here are my 20, I'm making this up, but like, here are my 20 work people versus like, here are my 20, best friends from college and high school. Like, can you have different lists or no, it's just
you
one big list?
you can. Okay, great. I got my step-by-step process. So and Kim, good job filling in as I was fumbling. I appreciate that. And another
No,
thing, when
I
you're
have
on
so many questions.
all right, so here's what you do. The very first step is you go to LinkedIn, just do a search, and then under search, you're going to hit the button posts. After you hit
Post.
posts, you're going to say from member. After that, you're going to start putting in, or sorry, after that, you hit all filters, posts, search, all members, and then just add the people's name that you want to see in their feed. So it could be Kim, it could be Jason, it could be Mark, so on and so forth. Then you save that URL because that's going to be your curated list of those creators. And to your point, yes, I have some for friends, I have some for potential media partners, I have some for potential speaking engagements, so on and so forth. That way, when I'm in the zone to comment on, let's say, a potential speaking partner's post, then I'm like,
Yeah,
okay, cool, let
yeah.
me lock in here. If it's my friends, I'm like, okay, get a little loose. If it's potential clients or whatever prospects, I'm a little, more rigid. But to the point, yes, save this curated list. And that way your time on LinkedIn, you can go so much faster into commenting, discovering, learning, as opposed to sifting through all the noise from other people.
Ooh, I like this. I did not know you could do that. That is freaking awesome. Okay. Gosh. What Terry, you just like changed the whole game with that.
Thanks. 'Cause I described it horribly, but I'm glad you got the gist of it. So thanks.
No, it's so good. I feel like my brain right now is like the emoji that Jen just put in the chat, like the cannonball emoji of my brain. No, I love that. I will be doing that instantaneously today because that is so true. It is that clutter. And I think the more you can distill, the better, because then you
Mhm.
really know that you're being intentional with your time. Okay, that's a good homework assignment, but we need more homework assignments. So if you
Yeah.
could give us a homework assignment to do in addition to creating a curated list with Terry and I, clearly. On it, we want to make your A team list. But what would that be? It could be to listen to something, could be to download something, could be to subscribe to something. What's something that you think we should do for homework?
I'll give you something easy then something hard, right? So the
Oh, yeah.
easy
Okay.
thing is my favorite podcast is called Finding Mastery by Dr. Michael Gervais. And he's a high performance psychologist working with the best in the world between sports, entertainment, and business. And the reason why I like his podcast is, first of all, he's amazing, but he brings on really great guests. And I think that'll help you find other podcasts, other newsletters, other creators and experts to interact with. So he's often like how I meet other people just by discovering them through his podcast. And I would say this, I mean, I would literally go through the whole 80-20 exercise that we've all heard about before, but we don't necessarily take action on. So, what are the 20% of things that you're doing that are getting you the 80% of the results in your business, in your life, whatever it is, and then cut out the rest. And this is when it gets very challenging because sometimes we hold on to things because there's a sentimental value or we're just kind of used to it. But if you want to experience a meaningful transformation, you got to leave some stuff behind, right? And that's how it goes. But that's how you get to your vision as well. And it's funny, me doing that, me doing an audit of what I was up to, I realized there were some partnerships that I was going to get rid of that actually paid 3 times more than other partnerships when I broke down how many hours went into it. So I was like, wait a second, I got to keep that one. I got to get rid of this other one. So that's why I was saying sometimes you have to stop to move forward. And if you feel like you're on this train where it's like, oh, I always got to keep on hustling, I have to do more to be more, that's when you don't have time for these optimizations. So I would say stop and do that 80-20, right? So Jen's doing that already. She's still shocked. All right. So Jen's co-signing this approach. Just do that because I could say something trite like
Yeah.
comment more on LinkedIn or whatever, but it's like if you want to change your life, literally change your life, first of all, get the vision, then second of all, do the 80-20, and you'll be in a much better spot.
Ah, all right. I love this. We got an easy one. We got a hard one. We got a middle one, which is those LinkedIn lists, which I'm really excited about. Terry, this has been so incredibly helpful. Where can people keep asking you questions, interacting with your content, and just generally learning more of your goodness?
Well, thanks for that. LinkedIn is the best place for that stuff. You'll find a link to sign up for my newsletter as well. I'm also active on Instagram, so that's more like behind the scenes, me playing with my kids type stuff. But I post on LinkedIn every day at 7 a.m. So if you want to interact with me or learn more from me or share with me as well, that's the best place to do it.
I love that. And so I know you said that you're not doing any like consulting or coaching work in these first 6 months, but is there anywhere where people could see you sort of IRL, as the kids say, in real life? Are you doing any keynote speaking, or is that also no go for first 6 months?
Are you trying to figure out if I still have a job? Like, what's you're kind of like
No,
poking
I'm
around.
trying to
You're
figure
like, you're
out,
like,
I'm
what's this
trying to
guy do?
stalk you and figure out where you're going to be.
Next week, I'm helping organize this conference called Hey Creator, which is going to be the largest
Okay.
creator summit ever. It's an online summit. Just go to heycreator.com. We have about 50,000 people that are going to show up. Our speakers include myself, Justin Welsh, Pat Flynn, Jay Close. So a lot of like well-known speakers and creators who want to help you. So go there. That's also the company that I've become managing director of growth and partnerships for. So it's fun to have this role where I'm helping excel the creator economy And I'm doing it from this organization where we can help you with your website, your newsletter, your content, your strategy, all that good stuff as well. So that is what I'm up to.
I love that. And by the way, it sounds like if we really want to see you in real life, we got to bundle up, be prepared for 5-degree weather, and we have to head to New York. That's really what we have to do.
You should do that. I'd enjoy that.
We'll meet you at the CrossFit gym. That's where we'll find you.
Perfect. It's normally where I'm camping out
Uh,
anyway, so I like it.
I love it. Terry, thank you so, so much. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. There will be a replay of this. I saw that question asked a few times. If you're joining us on Apple Podcasts or any of your favorite podcast networks, just know you can always listen later, but joining live and being able to ask questions, it's kind of where the party's at, but we'll take you any way that we can get you. So thank you so much to Terry. Thank you so much for joining and listening. And I will see you next week, same time, same place, 1 p.m. Eastern on Wednesdays. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Kim.